Welcome to the Leadership Surgery, where we operate on your biggest leadership challenges. You share your pain points anonymously if you prefer, and our surgeons will diagnose and dissect before offering recommended treatment. Scrubbing in today is Anthony Taylor. Hello, sir.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Doing very well. Would you rather, that's where I'm going today with a little intro. Would you rather, I like this one, would you rather own one pair of shoes or one coat?
Shoes are one coat.
I know where I've gone here.
One pair of shoes. I tell you why, because it reminds me of the military and my dad. We grew up on the moors. If you look after your feet, if your feet are cold, you're miserable.
Yeah.
Even if the rest of you's dry. If your feet are dry, even if the rest of you's wet, you'll be okay. One pair of shoes, Paul.
Interesting. I think I would have gone the other way. I do love this. I do love it.
You're starting with great advice. I like it.
Yeah, it's really good advice. So Sally, hello.
Hello. How are we?
See you. Yeah, good. I've got another question for you. Would you rather eat spicy food for the rest of your life or never eat it again?
Do you know, I'm glad that I didn't get Ant's question, because that would have been really difficult for a woman with the coat and the shoes. Do you know what? I would live without the spicy food, because I'm at an age where I'm getting a little delicate. And so let's just leave that there. But yeah, I'll get spicy food, and it would mean I couldn't have chocolate. And that for me would be the thing. So yeah, cut it out. I'll have the rest.
Right. Okay. Dan Finn, hello, sir.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back again.
You're welcome. Would you rather live on a boat or live in a camper van?
Oh, man. Oh, dearie me. I'm going to go boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason being, I feel like you've got more weight. Actually, I haven't thought this through. Yes, boat. I think you've got more places to go on a boat.
Okay.
And move like, and it's not going to be a boat, it'll be a yacht. It'll be yeah. And we can moor at Monaco and watch the Grand Prix, and then yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm going with a boat. And also I think I'd have to have somebody in to skip the boat. Whereas if I had a camper van, I'd probably have to drive it. So
Right. True.
I want a yacht and lots of money, please. Thank you.
Okay. Didn't promise that. Anyway, and I myself am Paul Nixon. It's good to be with you all. Thank you again for joining us for another episode. Let's chat not chat with our patient, but hear from our patient and see what the issue is today that we're looking at and what we're going to be operating on. Here we go. Hi, Anthony, Sally, Dan and Paul. My name is Tom. Hi, Tom. And I lead a remote-first team spread across different locations. While some of my team members thrive in this environment, others are disengaged, cameras off, minimal participation, and a general lack of energy in our team meetings. Obviously, I want this to change, but I'm unsure how much I should push. Are cameras off something I should be concerned about? Or is this just the new normal? I'm also worried about my team working long hours but having little impact. How can I re-energize my team and tackle some of these behaviors without becoming Big Brother? Please operate. Thanks in advance, Tom. Right. Some juicy things here, aren't there? And a very, very topical issue, I think, which is common for lots of organizations, teams, leaders in particular, to be discussing today. What are the symptoms then? What are we highlighting here? What are you noticing that's, is on your radar that you think really needs to be explored further? I mean, we've got this initial thing of disengagement, haven't we? That's a bit of an issue. Go on, Sally.
Oh, go on. You look like you were going to start there. Go on.
Me?
Yes. Well, I can start. For me, the cameras off thing, I think, was the disengagement bit, and the cameras off. I hear a lot of people talking about this, about feeling really uncomfortable, potentially in challenging some of these behaviors, particularly if somebody has cited anxiety as a rationale as to why they don't want to come forward and put their cameras on. And I think what's going through my mind is, why aren't we having those conversations and exploring the art of the possible? Because for me, if I just think about myself in my own line of work, as you were kind of talking it through, I was thinking, well, I just couldn't do that. That just wouldn't not be an option. My work relies on great relationships. When I'm first getting to know people, it's probably via Teams or, whatever they use. And I just could not show up and be fully physically present, because that's how I'm reading the room. I'm understanding kind of their reactions. They're getting to know me. So why are organizations and people not challenging some of that if, for most people, that's the way we build relationships and connection?
So you're leaning into we've got to have cameras on because in the line of work that you do in particular, you're thinking, well, without that, how am I going to be able to effectively do what I do? So are you thinking about body language, those sorts of facial expression, all that learning that you get from people?
Absolutely. And I think if you're in a position where somebody has given a reason as to why they can't, well, then why wouldn't you explore that further? So what I mean by that, I sometimes do my leadership programs and someone might say, oh my gosh, I can't do the final presentation at the end. There's just no way. Now, if I just went, well, that's perfectly fine, Paul, you don't have to do it, I'd let them off the hook. Whereas I think, I talk to them more about, what are the things that you could do between now and then? You might kind of present back in some of the groups, or you might take the lead on conversations. So I suppose that's what went through my head initially. If that's a tough conversation, let's have it, but let's look at steps forward rather than that's okay. You can't come on then, Paul's. That's it. We're done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
And I kind of feel you've got strong opinions on this.
Yeah, I sort of do. It's funny because I think there's a couple of issues here. There's a cameras off bit, and then we've got the digital presenteers, and we need to unpick. I'm conflicted because I come at this as a mental health first aid instructor for the last 7 years, mindful of that. But equally, I know I have seen and heard of lots of people swinging the lead, if I'm being honest, and using that as an excuse because they don't want to engage.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. My argument is this: you wouldn't walk into a meeting offline with a paper bag on your head. So you can't, it's just not acceptable. And if there really is a mental health issue around that, then that needs picking up and dealing with separately.
Yeah.
But just this, I don't want to do it and I don't feel comfortable and the hair's not looking good today, don't care. Lack of tolerance. I know I have exited people from online training because they refuse to put their cameras on or disengage. And I'm going, well, there's no point you being here. So you're wasting your clients, you're wasting your employers' time and money. I'll engage with the group of people that do want to be online or willing to be. And I'm just quite firm about it. Sorry, I just think it's...
And what sort of explanation do you give to that, Ant? Because, I mean, I know you well enough to know you're not just booting people out on a whim, or even simply saying, if you're not putting your camera on, you're out. You're going to give some sort of explanation of why you consider it a necessity. So what is that? What's driving that?
I've done it offline only once in each occasion. So once with somebody online and once with somebody face to face, and just posting face to face was so disruptive at the start of this. Don't see why I'm here. What's the point of it? Didn't want to be on it. Blah blah blah. I said to him, well, "Do you want to be here?" No. Well, in which case, there's no point you being here. You might as well go and do a good day's work for your employer, and do that way. And it was the same almost for this person online, refusing to engage, refusing to partake in stuff. So I said, there's just no point. You might as well go and do a day's work. So I'm giving you the option. Do you want to engage with this? Turn your camera on and partake or not? No. Okay. There you go.
So that's something that you would do. I mean, face to face, it would happen. Although I think, as we'd all probably guess, it's far less likely to happen face to face. If someone turns up to a venue, into the room, they're far less likely to just sit there, arms folded, say nothing.
Yeah. And it's only once in 12 years of doing this have I had to do that. And there were no complaints. The client actually went, yeah, thanks for that. At the end of the day, so did the person who asked to leave the room. So because he went and didn't want. But I think with this, it is that balance between, is this just somebody swinging the lead and don't want to engage? I had a conversation with a client who was struggling with one of their employees. It wasn't an official thing. And she was asking me, what do we do? And we sort of explored it to a similar vein that we've got here. And she ended up having that difficult conversation with her and saying, look, this now is becoming a performance issue. If you're refusing to engage, then this now becomes a performance conversation, unless there's a very good reason
Okay.
medically for that.
Sal?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to listen to you, because I think we've just, I wonder if it's become a habit, that, this is left over from COVID, and people are in a situation where it kind of was, because what people were going through at the time, it was accepted. People were kind of didn't want to create any extra stress by challenging people. But now I think it's become the norm. And then I think a little bit, maybe like some of the other topics that we've covered, it means having a difficult conversation, or it feels like it's going to be a difficult conversation. And therefore, we put it off. But I think seeing other people should be the baseline, not a bonus. And therefore, Tom in this scenario needs to be challenging and having some of those conversations to try and bring it to the fore. Dan, you're nodding away there. Yeah. What do you think?
Big time. I'm I'm in agreement with everything that's been said. There's part of me here that thinks Tom needs to have a real big chat with his team and actually have a tough conversation. This is the expectations of working with me as a leader. This is what I expect of you as a team, the same way that you expect different things from me. But if you want to be as part of my team and get all the benefits of being in my team, then this is an expectation. I want to be present, and I want to create a sense of belonging in this team. And to do that, we need to see each other. We need to get to know each other. And so the minimum I require of you is having your cameras on. And I think that is a tough conversation to have up front. And if teams continue to not do it, then you take it a little bit further. I mean, how far do you go? If you're in small organizations, can you make this part of the policy? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too extreme, but I think part of this is Tom needs to have a chat with his team. And there's something I picked up on his statement as well around having little impact. The other side of this argument is, well, how do you know they're having little impact as well? So are you actually just using this, they don't show up to meetings, they're never, sorry, it's not they don't show up to meetings, they never show up on camera on the meetings, I don't really know what they're doing. Are you using that as an excuse because you're not having an even tougher conversation because they're not performing? So there's a few different things in for me, but I think this starts with conversation with your team and delivering that tough bit of feedback, but also setting expectations that what you want from your team, what you want to build.
I was going to say, is that a conversation with the whole team or with specific individuals?
I'd start off as a whole team for me.
Yeah.
It's not, and then let's see what happens after that original conversation. If more people start putting their cameras on, then it's working. But if you're still seeing the same culprits, then that's when you have your one-on-one conversations. Back to Ant's point of finding out if there is something to do with anxiety, or there's reasons behind not wanting to put the camera on, then we address that in a different conversation.
And I think the other thing, sorry, I was going to tell you, is he's saying that in this instance, they're not putting the cameras on. Are they, we don't know the nature of the team, are they not putting their cameras on with other people in the organization or external? Or is it just within the team meeting?
Yeah.
Because if they're doing it with other stakeholders, internal, external, and then that's fine, but they're not with him, what's the issue? But if they're not doing it with everybody, then yeah. So it'd be good to know.
Yeah.
For Tom to know that.
Yeah. Finding that distinction. Sal, what were you going to say?
I was just trying to reflect, because obviously it seems like we're all on the cameras on,
Yeah, definitely.
bandwagon, and for very good reasons in terms of why we think it would add value to relationships, to the team, to the connection, to maybe the output, the energy. There's lots of reasons for, but and there might be people who are swinging the lead, and I suppose by Tom taking the time with his team, he'll understand that. I was just trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who maybe was genuinely, had anxiety or issues, like how this might feel to listen to this, podcast, and, what could we offer there? And I just wonder if we, want to encourage people to grow. So encourage them to think, okay, well, if cameras on feels too much, what might be a step in the right direction? or what would make the meeting feel more comfortable for you to do that. So I just want to try and be a bit of devil's advocate, I suppose, explore some different options in terms of, if you listen to this and really struggling, what might help. But what I do see, going back to my final presentation example, is that maybe 80-90% at the beginning go, oh my God, the thought of doing a presentation. And then when they do it, the joy and the sense of achievement they get. So I think this is kind of, to some extent, a similar situation, that by helping people by Tom facing into that conversation, realizing that there's a bit of support needed, putting those steps in, imagine the progress and the sense of achievement everybody will feel. So, don't know, just that was going through my head as well, just exploring that other side of the coin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the recommended treatment here. So what do we need to propose that Tom does? And I think we've touched on it already. One of the things surely that's got to happen here is Tom needs to raise the issue. It needs to bring it out in the open.
Yeah.
Talk about it. I think also there's something around setting that expectation and being really clear on, this is what I not just want, it might be need. This is what I need from you as a team.
Yeah.
And then checking in with individuals one by one to find out how they felt about what was said in that meeting when I made this announcement, and then teasing out any of those individual issues or potential challenges of, well, I struggle with putting my camera on because of X, or or I don't engage with as much because of this. It's finding out some of that, I think, from people, which is going to be a necessity. What else would you recommend?
I think as well as that, he needs to set expectations. Absolutely. I think there might be a piece of work to do as a team to say, what are our group expectations? How do we want to show up as a team collectively? What do we want to be known for? How do we want to be seen? Because if these behaviors are happening with other stakeholders in the business, what's that doing to the team's reputation?
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe a piece of work that jointly says, and I think all managers could be doing this, or certainly I think, especially if you can bring a new team together, but periodically we're revisiting this as a team. What do we want to be known for? What are our values? What are our expectations around this? What do we want to be known for? And for how we're going to show up if that's what we want to be known for, what are the behaviors that are going to drive that? Yeah. And we hold each other to account. And perhaps that's something that Tom might consider.
Okay.
Yeah. I really like those, and I think that joint accountability is really key. And working together. The only couple of builds that I would add, I just wonder, just getting a sense of Tom, and obviously it's only a short paragraph, so I just get a worry that he might be avoiding stuff or not facing into things. And I think, in leadership, sometimes things are tricky, and maybe Tom giving a little bit of thought to does he want his own brand to be? What's important to him in terms of the kind of leader that he wants to be? It's important to him. What are his values? Because I think then if you get better connected with what you're about, when you're faced with a difficult situation, you can go back to that and say, look, I need to have this conversation because one of my values is honesty. And actually, I'm doing that person a disservice if I don't have this honest conversation. So I think just, again, that step back. Who am I? What am I about? And then on my daily choices, casting votes against the person that I want to be. So that was just an extra thought going through my head to help you when it gets tough.
Which is tying in with the personal why and the team why, isn't it? Understanding that reason. As you will have experienced too, I'm sure, all of you. I've seen so many change initiatives fall short, or at the very least just be rejected by those people that they impact, and it's because the why is not explored. We don't explore and understand why this is a necessity. We're not really clear on that. Sometimes we're not really honest with it. And I want everyone to put their camera on. Okay, why?
Yeah.
Because people haven't got an answer for it. They haven't really thought it through. Even though both Sally and Ant in particular, straight away you were very articulate with it. Many people aren't. And so I think coming back to that reason behind why I'm asking this, why it matters to me, why it matters to us as a team, is going to make that message land an awful lot easier, and give people less opportunity to really argue with it as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think getting that conversation out there is important. The bit we haven't touched on, which I think maybe is inadvertently, because the solutions still work for the long hours bit, but I just wonder what's going on there as well. The long hours and the presenteeism. I wonder again if the value is being placed on being seen or what people do rather than their output and what they're achieving. I think, Dan, you talked about kind of some of this earlier on in the conversation. Again, I wonder if they're focused on the wrong things. So as well as talking about the why and what we want to do, how will we know? How will we know we've got there? What are our measures of success? That could be a KPI or it could be feedback from stakeholders. But I think it doesn't feel like they've addressed that bit of the conversation as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, what's more important to Tom, right? Is it that his team members' icons on Teams or Zoom or whatever, whichever platform are showing, either show busy or online or whatever, or is it their output? Are they delivering against their goals? Are they able to contribute and do what they're being asked of, and even going above and beyond? So there's this thing of you see it all over TikTok and Insta, don't you? These like these mouse wigglers and these bits of software which makes it look like you're present but you're not. So
really,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So not as an organisation, I'm not aware of. So tell me a little bit more.
So it's
I've got a great one, Sally. It's really effective.
things that will just move your mouse, so it makes you look like you're online when you're not and you're doing other things.
Okay.
So my point being is, what's more important to Tom here? Is it that he's encouraging the behaviour of people to be showing as online or busy or whatever, but not necessarily that on their output? And if it's a tougher conversation to say, it's a harder conversation to give them feedback because they're not performing than saying, oh, actually you were away for 3 hours the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we're creeping into that kind of territory as well, where Tom's not wanting to have a difficult conversation because he'd rather have a conversation around, well, if your camera's on and meeting and you've shown away for 3 hours during the day, instead of saying you're not actually performing. You're an underperforming employee at the moment, and this is the evidence. So it's a bit, we don't know, we're guessing, but this also goes back to how Tom wants to set his team up as well. Because if he can build that trust, which actually, do you know what? It's all right if you want to go and have your haircut at lunchtime, or you need to go walk the dog for an hour, because I know and I trust you that you're going to deliver on your goals and on your objectives. So this idea of cameras on and being present and all that kind of stuff, as long as they're performing, I'm playing complete devil's advocate from what I said at the beginning of the podcast, I realise, but I think it's also a good point to raise as well.
Yeah, I think as well, I'm a big fan of, thinking about leadership starting with you. So Tom, just pausing for a minute and reflecting on what is he doing and what examples are he setting that might be influencing this behavior.
Yeah.
Is he, checking his email at 7, 8 o'clock at night after he's actually formally finished, but then his people, his team looking at it and go, oh God, he's still working, so I need to be too. And that's driving this digital presenteeism and this underperformance.
Yeah.
So maybe, I'm not saying he is, because we don't know, but just, I always think this was a leader to have that self-reflection. Actually, what am I doing that might be behind or influencing this?
I think you have to start with you, don't you? Because I think that as a leader makes you more focused. Something was going through my head. I had a conversation this morning about with somebody about broken windows in communities, and if they're kind of ignored, what that then leads on to. And I just wonder with Tom whether some of his performers in his team that might have been good contributors, because maybe some of this isn't being tackled, the early broken windows, so to speak, some of these things now are getting more and more challenging. And other people are a bit like, well, if so-and-so's not doing it, I'm not doing it. It's that behavior breeds behavior. So I think that responsibility with Tom first. We're right behind you, Tom. We don't want you to feel that we're not, but feel like there's have a bit of a clean, go in and have a bit of a, take stock, have a look at what, is important to you. And, these things are coverable. We're behind.
And if you want to blame me, say Ant says put your camera on.
Yeah, that's it.
But I mean, interestingly as well, I think
Yeah.
I think this is for people who are not in this boat that Tom is in at the moment. There's a really critical lesson here as well. Maybe you've got so far in your leadership journey that in some way or form, you've never felt the need to tackle the team dynamic, the way we show up in meetings, what we do together in that time that we have. Maybe that's never been a necessity. Well, this is like one of those broken windows, as you say, Sal. This is an indicator of, well, this is where it can end up if we don't address this sort of stuff. You know, I'll often talk to leaders about Christopher Columbus syndrome. You know, when Christopher Columbus set sail, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. And when he got back, he didn't know where he'd been. And the idea of just being totally clueless with what's going on, you can get away with that sometimes for a period of time, but it will catch up with you. And so being really clear on purpose, on values, on why we do, what really matters to us is absolutely essential. And I think that part of the preventative care here to this sort of issue is making sure that we have these conversations with our teams. We talk to them about what we do in this meeting, even perhaps bringing up the conversation with your team. Is our team meeting effective? You know, does it do what we need it to do? Does it do what we want it to do? And take it from there. Could be a really good way of ironing out some of those more hidden creases, perhaps.
Yeah. And even take it to a rating, Paul. You know, end of the meeting, we've come up with these values. Let's rate ourselves out of 10. How much are we doing it? Right. Okay. You've said a 7. Why do you think we're 7? You know, all of these things just get people talking, get people being more honest. And then, you know, you build from there. You know, don't just accept something and then never challenge it, whatever it is. Keep trying to move the needle and use those ways to kind of make this discussion come alive.
So stitching up, in summary, what are we suggesting here? Let's, you know, try and nail it down to a point, maybe 2 at the most, because we might have a few things to share, but there's quite a bit of overlap in what we've said. What are we suggesting that Tom or anyone in a similar situation needs to do on the back of this? Where do they go from here? And what's the thing that springs to mind for you?
Start by having one-to-one conversations with everybody, especially those that are keeping the cameras off, to find out what's going on for them and what might be behind it. And then if there's an opportunity, just to convey gently Tom's expectations around that, if it's not a mental health issue.
Yeah. Okay. Sal, what are you thinking?
So I'll go back to the values piece. Think about the kind of leader you want to be. And then think about, on a daily basis, are my daily habits making votes towards that? Are they helping or hindering? And a second thing that, again, has just sprung to mind as we talk through, because we're trying to change behaviours, I think where you see good stuff happening after some of these conversations, recognise it. Give some recognition. So values, what does that mean in my daily habits? And when I see good behaviour, recognise it would be my 2 to try and move things on.
Okay. Dan, what about you?
Don't be afraid to have the tough conversation around them having little impact, or you feel they have little impact in the team. So I agree with what Ant and Sally have said, by the way, but I think to add something extra, I think at the source of this is a tough conversation with your team around their impact that they're having as well. So don't be afraid to have that, because as we've said before, leadership is made up of a hell of a lot of difficult conversations. And actually, once you've almost named that elephant and you've spoken about it, you never know what might come out the end of it as well. Challenge with care, though. Radical Handicap's got to clang.
Love it. I think my piece is, I'm going to come back to something we've talked about a number of times on these podcasts, and that is, if you share a little bit of yourself, then you'll get something from others. And so if it was me, I'd just lay a little bit of vulnerability on the table and say, as Tom, I'd be saying to my team, do you know what, team? I just need to let you know, I find this really hard to engage with you as things are. I find it difficult because I can't see you And when I think about it, when I engage my friends or family outside of work, and I can see them and I see their eyes, their facial expression, their body language, all those sort of stuff, I'm not getting any of that from you, and I'm finding it quite difficult. And I'd love you to give me some guidance and thoughts on how we can do this better together, because I think that'll improve our team meetings and our whole team dynamic. So laying that little bit of yourself on the table, just to be really clear, I think that would help. Okay, lovely. There's quite a bit in that.
Yeah.
Lots to digest. Tom, I hope that has been helpful to you. I think we've all found it somewhat therapeutic talking through it. We'll be back with another episode in the very near future. In the meantime, if you'd like to submit one of your challenges, then feel free to do that. You can email us theleadershipsurgery@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you on that. And don't forget to like and subscribe on this podcast and share it with friends, family, just random people in the street if you want to. Love to grow the audience and hear more from others.
It would be lovely as well to hear other people's versions of this, because as we've pointed out this podcast, I think all four of us feel quite strongly about this. Having the cameras on, it would be lovely to hear other people's perspective, which we may have missed on this, because I think out of many of the podcasts that we've done, we normally have quite we're normally quite balanced, where I think some of this conversation might have been a little bit biased. But it'd be great to hear from other people, and maybe even get them on as a guest. That'd be good.
That's very fair and very wise, Dan, I think. Yeah, it's a really good shout. Thank you so much, everyone. We will speak again very soon. Take care.